Hello and welcome to Guided Talks. And today I'm absolutely delighted to have with me Ann Stanley from Anicca Digital, who are based in Leicester in the middle of the UK. Hello, Ann. It's an absolute pleasure to be talking with you.
Hello, Robert. It's been a long time coming, this interview, hasn't it?
It certainly has. This one of those interviews which is made up of conversations at bars and in mastermind groups and online and offline and blah, blah, blah. So we've got loads to get through today. I've got a little list of stuff that I'd like to pick your brain about. So I'd like to talk about gender inequality in this agency world. I'd like also to talk about leading as a woman and culture and what you wish you'd known when you started. So for those who don't know you, Anne, could you just give us a quick sort of 3-sentence potted history of who you are and what Anicca is?
Okay, so I started my life off as a scientist. So I actually came to Leicester to do biology. So I've had two careers. So my first career was in medical research and scientific research. And actually that's had quite a big influence on me because it means I'm really into the data and I really like numbers. And I work for the pharmaceutical industry and I work for the leather industry and all that sort of stuff. So I actually started my career in digital in 2002, which is 20 years ago, which is quite scary. So I started working for an agency that no longer exists called Media Co. And I started off by doing a lot of training and I was doing business development. I was sort of doing sales, but I was more of a consultant. I've always loved the techie side of things. You know, I'd already got my marketing qualifications. So I was basically a marketeer that turned into digital marketing. And then about 2004, a friend and I decided to build a property website. So we thought we were going to make absolutely loads of money selling property online. So it was really early on. And of course, yeah, we stretched ourselves a bit far. We started to do overseas property, which was all really exciting. And then, as you know, 2007, we could see the writing on the wall. The interest rates were going through the roof. So we basically stopped doing that and created Anicca with one of my best mates. He was a web techie. I was really into paid search because we were obviously doing that when we were doing the property. We were spending quite a lot of money. And then we sort of learned SEO as well. So we were what I would call a traditional search agency. So it started with just 3 of us, and it's our 15th birthday this year. So we've been around for quite a long time. In that time, lots of things have changed. So Alex and I went our separate ways about 7-8 years ago. He went off to do his own thing, and we stopped building websites and focused on digital marketing. And a similar sort of time, we brought in content and PR, then we brought in social. So I guess we do, we're just like a traditional digital marketing agency. There's 30 of us, and we do a mix of B2B and B2C. Turnover's about 2 million, and we've got about 45 clients. So we don't have loads and loads of, small clients. We try and work with the larger clients where we can. So we try and do the sort of more technical end of digital agency work, into the analytics and data studio and all the tracking and a lot of paid media. That's where we're really good at. So that's us really.
Perfect. So let's get going in the conversation. So there's a whole piece that we've talked about quite a few times, but it's kind of it's not an elephant in the room, but it's certainly a conversation that doesn't ever quite get resolved. And I'm going to just slam 2 ideas together. The one is about gender inequality in the agency world.
Yep.
There seems to be, white men running agencies selling stuff to black women. I mean, that's a very simplified explanation of stuff, but that you do see that happening. But also, I guess that leads on to, you're a rare species, a woman leading a digital agency. There aren't many of you, and I'm sure you're aware of that. Let's just start off with the gender inequality piece. What's your whole take on
Well,
the mix of genders?
Well, I was brought up in, I was a teenager in the 70s and I was into motorbikes and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and I was a rocker and I was a rebel, and I went to university and I was the only female that had been, I was the first person from our comprehensive school to go to university. All my friends were male, and I wasn't really a feminist because I just acted like a bloke. So I would have been your classic tomboy, who sort of worked harder than all the other girls. And my dad said very early on, if you want to be better than the guys, you've got to work harder. So I sort of experienced a lot of sexism and a lot of glass ceilings, but I didn't really think that you should be treated any differently, and you had to be successful on your own merits. So I always believed that talent would shine through, and I guess when you equate that to now, you can see the difference because you don't get as many glass ceilings as you used to, particularly with people that haven't had kids. If they've not, and I mean both men and women really, up until the point that people start having families, I think that's when the issues start to arise. So we've got a 50-50 split, and in fact I think we've got more women than we have men, and the two of the directors are female, one male, so yeah, and 50% all the way through. So it's not like there's is 50-50 up until sort of account director level and then it goes all men. It's not like that at all. But marketing's always been a traditional, and biology was always a traditional female industry, so I don't think getting women into the sector is a problem. I think it's them becoming business owners that there's more of an issue. I think having the balls basically to be prepared to not worry about how much money you're earning and taking the risks. And I would say that women are a little bit more risk adverse. And it's really only been in the last 5 years you've seen so many more female agency owners that have just done it, and taken that risk.
But it's still not so many. It's like it's cringingly embarrassing sometimes at some conferences.
Yeah,
It's to the advantage of anyone who looks different, whether they're a different color or a different sex, or they're very tall, or whatever it is, because it's a it's a very kind of commoditized population of similar looking white blokes of a similar age wearing similar clothes talking about similar things with similar cars and similar families. And
yeah, no, I
it
agree.
is a
I mean, and particularly in Leicester, because Leicester's always been a very, one of the attractions of Leicester was that it's such a multiracial community. And until earlier this year, until COVID really, we had 30% from the BAME community, which I actually think is less represented than females, to be honest. The other interesting thing that I've noticed is, as you and me are of a similar age, aren't we? Which we don't talk about too much.
over 21.
There's a lot of ageism as well. And once you get over 50, it's almost impossible to get a job in digital marketing. Or over 40, I would say even. So there is sort of clicks, and in a way, it's a real shame because there's a lot of talent in some of these groups. And my view is that you always employ people based on their talent, and we've done things like have a very transparent pay scale where you've got bands of people and they're employed in that band. And another one, of course, is we also recognise that certain technical skills, they're never going to make good managers. So we've got a parallel pay scale based on the fact that you can be a technical manager or you can be a people manager and you can still be earning the same salary. Because glass ceilings based on hierarchy, I think, are a real problem as well. So we've tried to address that as well.
So what you're saying is, if you're a real techie, a real pointy head, shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean, rather than feeling obliged to go into management and peoply stuff, that you can continue some kind of a career progression within Anicca,
Yeah, no, definitely.
just on the tech side.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we've got technical strategists who they've sort of come through, usually they've come through, because we've got a lot of senior staff, and in fact that's, one of our issues around profitability is that particularly during the last 12 months where we had to recruit, we tended to recruit quite senior staff, and we've sort of neglected bringing in as many trainees. We're sort of addressing that now. So we're quite top heavy with our staff. So that means that there's a lot of people, well, where would they go? So we've sort of eradicated that problem by creating pay scales really based on the sort of like the university scheme, which is where I originally picked it up from sort of 20, 30 years ago. where you can carry on going up the ladder, irrespective of whether you're managing people or not. And I think that's really
And
important for an agency like us, where the technical prowess of your team is not, there's not a glass ceiling based on, because usually they're crap at it, to be perfectly honest. The people that are most technical are usually the worst managers. I probably include myself in that, to be honest. Yeah, the more technical you
so,
are.
so what's your view on that terminal question about who do you hire? Do you hire graduates, or do you hire seniors, or do you hire someone with 5 years experience, or how do you answer that question?
It's a really interesting one because we've always done both. So when we were small, there wasn't any PPCs because we were a PPC agency 15 years ago when everybody was an SEO agency. So there wasn't any PPC people
Mm.
around. So we had a great relationship we've got two really good universities in Leicester, De Montfort and University of Leicester, and they sussed out quite early on that if they could, give a 3-year placement for a student. So we used to get students for 3 months, train them as rapidly as we could, and we used to use something called a recruitment boot camp, where effectively we would spend 2 weeks like a mini apprenticeship training them, and they forgot they were being interviewed. So that was a really good strategy and a good way of interviewing and bringing on new staff. And then from then we would take usually 2 a year normally, maybe 2 or 4 a year, and then we would train them up. Now, they would often become more valuable much faster than employing somebody that got 1 or 2 years experience. And Darren, who he's now my MD because I'm now CEO. He joined Anicca that way, so he's an example of a success. After he got to head of PPC, then he became operations director, and now he's MD. So that was through that route. So that route is really successful, and we're repeating it again at the moment because the universities are providing grants for people. The local chambers are providing grants for employing people. So when you can, take advantage of that. But when you're growing really quickly, which we've had various growth spouts over the years, and you've got to deliver work fast, we've had to go up the pecking order and employ people with 3 to 5 years experience, and with varying success. Sometimes they've been amazing, and sometimes they're just not as good as the people that you would have trained yourself, or you've got to retrain them in some of the ways that you do stuff. So I think it's
And
a
have you got
mix.
and have you got people at the senior level that you recruited sort of
Oh yeah,
straight in, or has
yeah,
everyone
we
been
have. I mean,
been, been
we took on a lot of quite senior people to make some big changes, and we did it deliberately because we wanted to double in size. We're currently about 37 people, and we needed to get to about 50. And we thought the best way of doing that was to bring in some real talent. So we brought in a new head of sales, head of marketing, and a head of creative and strategy. We did have one role that was new as well, which was content and PR, and I'm still recruiting for that job because it didn't work out. So we've had a 75% success rate. They mainly all joined a year ago, so that was a big growth in headcount. But that was because we could make them make a difference to the business. That was the real reason for doing it, and make that stepwise change. If you want to be of an agency of 50 and you want to have a turnover of 5 million, you've got to act like it. You can't carry on acting like an agency of 2 million. You've got to act differently.
And what do you think the difference is between an agency of 2 million and an agency of 5 million?
Well, that's a really good question. And what we're finding at the moment is that we're still suffering a little bit because of how remote we are and how flexible we are with our, and as some of the processes that we probably had in place pre-COVID have slipped. So I think being more like an engine in the sense of the processes and the systems is really important, and we're having to readdress a lot of that. But the investment in marketing and sales is the biggest change. And if I look at, it was 6 years ago I did the elevator program with you guys, which is unbelievable really. And if I look at the people that were around the table with me at the time, what the ones did that grew really, really quickly, which we didn't do, was they invest in sales and new business a little earlier on. So I definitely think the people that invested in sales are the ones that have grown more quickly. And we've tried and failed so many times, and it's really only in the last 18 months we've actually got the success around sales that we you know that we were looking for before. And it's the classic thing, the owner, me in this case, does most of the business development because it was a consultancy sale. But we've been able to get a team of people that help with that now. So it's not all about me anymore. It's not reliant on me. So I think that's the big
So what's
difference.
just digging into that a bit, because I think that's it's the perennial question, isn't it? It's like I'm now on my fourth sales director, and I think I'm going to sack him. It's kind of this sort of thing about they're like unicorns, the magical people who can do the whole biz dev sales marketing piece. Clearly, no one can do all of it. That's a water walker. But how have you managed to crack that? We've
Well,
created this sales machine piece.
Well, we hadn't. I mean, it took. As I said, I think we tried 4 or 5 times before we managed to get. I'm gonna get call her out. Mind you, everybody are headhunters, so maybe that's not such a good idea. So, so Ange, she actually came from the Reach group, which is the local the local newspaper group. Used to be Trinity Mirror. I mean, they've had about 5 different names. And she actually sold herself to me. So she came to me and said, I want to I want to move, and I want to, I want you to employ me. You can't, I'm too good for you to, and she was right. But it's such a rare beast, and I do agree it's really difficult. And I think the guys that are successful have had that luck, but I think it's hire slow and fire fast. And the people that didn't
Mm.
work before, we probably let them hang around for too long. And I think after 6 months they should be selling. In fact, after 3 months they should be selling. And Ange, in her case, did it much faster than that. So yeah, I think it's if you get the right one, they are like rocking horse shit, as we would say. It's so rare, It's just really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So just going back to this because we started off talking about gender inequality. We didn't quite get
No,
on
I've sort of jumped that.
into the leadership thing, which is fine. Uh, um, women. Do you think that, and maybe it's even the wrong, outdated question, but do you think women, in some senses, are better leaders than men, or just
I definitely think they do
less
things
familiar with that path?
differently. I would say that my style is quite hands-on. I've had to learn to delegate. I'm quite unusual in that, and most of the women that have got agencies, I think, are very technical. So I think that and the majority of the agents, people like Nicola Stolt and a few of the others around that I know, they tended to be good consultants and good specialists in their own right. So they went through the route of being very, very good at their job and then becoming a business person. I had been fortunate in that I've done an MBA, and when I was in my 20s, we had a farm and we lost loads of money. So I learned how not to do it early on. So I learned how not to be a good business person. But to me, the key is I know you and Yanis talk about it all the time, is the classic visionary and the integrator. You need that person behind the scenes that is your yin and yang. You need to know which one you are. Are you the person that's out there, the one that's talking, being the ambassador, and being the person front of house? And all the successful business women that I know are not like me personality wise, but they're the ones that are out there, and they've usually got somebody behind the scenes as the matching one. So I think if you come from that route where you've already got a personal look, everybody talks about Carrie, but Carrie Rose, but she's part of a team. She's not the only one, but she's the one that everybody remembers because she's the one out there who's being very, has got that public face. So I think the agency leaders at the moment, female agency, the ones that I'm aware of, are the ones that got that visible face. And I think it's easier to become an agency owner if you've done that than if that's what you want to do. than if you're quietly in the background, because you've got to be able to sell and you've got to be able to convince people that you know what you're talking about.
And do you think you've come across sexism from other agency leaders
No,
or from suppliers or anything like
no,
that because you're a woman leading an
no.
agency?
I think that not anybody that is sexist deliberately. They may have been inadvertently set up processes or recruitment where they're doing it accidentally, in the sense that they're not going out of their way to proactively recruit, more people that are similar to them. But I do think it happens. I think it happens more in the more technical disciplines like developers. I think women that are doing web development are really up against it. And even though there's some brilliant people, and there's a lot of good technical SEO females out there. They've done
Mm.
really, really well. But generally, I think they have a more difficult time than the more, general marketing. But I don't think there's sexism, particularly in this industry. I think it's more accidental or perpetuating people that are similar. It's the classic thing. You tend to surround yourselves with people that are similar to yourself. So that's why you've got a low representation of the BAME community. You've not got many people over 40 or over 50. Hardly any in those groups.
So it's just like a self-fulfilling
It
prophecy. I mean,
is.
not
It is.
in some sense.
Exactly. That's what I think it is. I don't think anybody's deliberately going out there to do it, because if they realised the amount of talent that was out there within those minority groups, and particularly when recruitment is so difficult, they'll be going after them, proactively going after these people, not trying to exclude them. It's a false economy to do that. And there may be differences in salaries. It's difficult for me to comment because we deliberately don't do that. We don't judge people on any of those factors, but it may happen in other places. And I remember being at SASCON 5 or 6 years ago and getting into a debate about this and finding it shocking that people, were treating people differently. But that was probably when there was more supply than demand. Now, your staff can pretty much demand whatever they want from you.
Don't tell them. Don't tell them.
I think they know. Yeah, I think they know. And I think, to be honest, it was really, I don't know whether you saw Gareth's post the other day, which has got something like
Yep.
15 million views, because he's posted about doing a 4-day week. Well, we've offered that for 2 years, but not really shouted about it. Um, you know, um, but that was really interesting to see the extreme views within that LinkedIn post. And most of the people in our industry are thinking, well, isn't this normal? Whereas other sectors, so I think it's more sector specific than it is our sector that suffers from this.
And also, because we, by definition, we were digitally more savvy than the civil service, say. But I mean, that's the classic thing about you. You get someone like Rees Mogg, who's never done. Well, I'm not going to comment on Rees Mogg. He's my MP, so he represents. He doesn't represent me. He represents the county I live in. Um, Totally out of touch with how offices run and how people run and how they need to run and so on and so forth. And there are, fortunately, the digital agency world, we already knew what the internet was. We didn't have to suffer 7 years of digital transformation
In a
in the
week,
same way
yeah.
that others did in a week.
Well,
So,
that's an interesting point, though. So I would say there was one area where we were a little bit ahead of the curve, maybe compared with other agencies, because
mm,
I was a single parent for most of, I've got grandkids now. We were commenting about the fact we both got grandkids. So when our head of paid media at the time, about 7 or 8 years ago, had her twins, and that was the first pregnancy that we encountered. So before most of the agencies were being formed, because most of the agencies are
mm,
5 to 7 years old, we were getting into this.
yeah,
Oh, oh dear, we have to provide maternity cover
yeah,
for a year. And then when a lot of because we did have a good representation of young ladies in our group, although, as I said, some of the guys have have had quite a lot of paternity leave as well. We had to provide that flexibility. So we've been providing flexible working to accommodate the fact that we've got so many women in the workforce for many, many years. And, and working from home and being able to, leave early and just allow for your time. So I think that mentality, we were sort of a bit of ahead of the curve. But I guess because everybody else has had to catch up, I don't see it as being a big problem in our sector, but I think it is in others,
Mm, mm,
and the other thing we did as a result of COVID is we employed a lot of people from outside of the area to take advantage of talent around the country. And we don't force them to come to the office once a week. They come to the office once a month and we make a bit of a social thing out of it. So, I'm in the office today, but there's 3 of us in, and we try and come in 1 or 2 days a week, but we've made it completely voluntary. And I know a lot of people say they're flexible working, but when you actually look into the working, it's not as flexible as they're pretending to be. So I think that's going to have a big impact on where people choose to work.
mm, mm. And on the culture of those workplaces as well, because it becomes very transactional rather than relationshipful, if there's such a word. Um, once you have people working from home, how do you train people up? How do people understand what the values of the agency are? How do they pick up all the nuances? That all kind of goes out the
Yeah, I
window
mean,
when everyone's
I'm
working
definitely
from
worried
home.
about that. And I think it was interesting talking to a few people that over the last few weeks, at Brighton and stuff, and a lot of people saying they were
Mm,
in 3 or 2 days a week. So I think we're going to try and encourage people to come in. And we've got amazing offices. We've got a bar and we're by the
mm,
river, and it's a really nice place, and we've got training rooms upstairs. So we're not going to get rid of our office, but we own it anyway.
mm,
So it's a massive, it's very, it's a great asset for us. But we do think we need to get people back in a little bit more. And particularly when you start bringing the grads in again and doing the training, they definitely need to be in at least 3 days a week. Otherwise, they don't pick up
mm.
exactly what you've been saying.
No, they don't. They don't pick up any of the nuances. So, what's your kind of definition of what inverted commas, what a successful agency does? What would you kind of, how would you characterize
I
in
think
inverted commas
for
a successful agency?
me, one of our problems is that what we've strived for isn't the most profitable. So that's a bit of a shock when you're thinking, oh, I've got 3 to 4 years. I've got to, I'm meant to be retiring or doing career mark 3. I actually need to get my act together and, and for the next 2 years make enough profit to actually get the value to sell the agency, even if it's sell it to the staff or sell it to a web developer or whatever we decide to do. And obviously working with Yanis and your team on that job. But the things that I define as success are very different from that. And to me, profit's almost secondary, which is probably a mistake, but I'm just going to go with it. So to me, it was always about the quality of the work. It was always about doing work that your clients valued, that got them results. And I've got this motto of prove it. And it comes from the scientist in me. It comes from the fact that I'm female and I've had to fight through these glass ceilings all the way through my career. But I think this concept of proving that you do a better job, proving that you're going to work harder, you've got the grit and determination, doing a better service, and not just doing mediocre work. To me, it's always about the quality of and the results that you get for people. And that's great in a situation where everything's going upwards, and you get people boasting about the fact that they've got 3 times more e-commerce revenue than they did a year ago, and actually,
Right.
well, so was everybody else. But at the moment, for example, we've been doing some research, and e-commerce is down 50%, on a year
Mm,
ago. We use SimilarWeb, and we can see that a lot of the sectors that we work in, which tend to be sort of manufacturers of products, neither B2C or B2B on e-commerce side, but
mm,
they're down over 50%, and our clients are complaining because we're only getting 20% growth. And that, well, hold on a minute, the whole sector's down. This is 20, if you're doing what you did a year ago, you're successful.
yeah,
So for me, to me, it's all about the quality of the technical work. And our clients aren't particularly sexy. I'd say our clients were very unsexy, a lot of them. We've got a few B2C, like, we've been working with Dykeman Shoes, Charles Bentley, we've been working for over 10 years. So those are sort of brands that have got lovely products. But, when you're working with somebody like Domino Printers for the last 6 years, that's not really sexy stuff. So we can't do all the really sexy, PR pieces. A lot of it is just good quality content, good quality paid media advertising. We've started to bring in more creative in the last year to improve what we're doing. But it's just been a little, it's not being at the cutting edge all the time. It's just being a little bit behind. But being that trusted advisor, it's a bit of a cliche, but being there and doing a lot of their thinking for them. So that's what I regard as a successful agency, and being able to keep your clients and just do really good quality work.
So if you then ask that old question of what 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 do you wish you had known when you started off? What were the things you wish you'd known?
Interesting. Well, I definitely would have got sales in a lot earlier, because for us, there's a critical mass because of the cost of providing the support and the client services and the marketing and the sales and everything. We need to be bigger. Anybody that wants to send us some work, we'd love to take some more work. So I think having the sales engine in earlier would have been much better. Um, Probably me focusing on what I'm good at earlier on, and getting the team to do a lot of the stuff, because I still dabble in some of the marketing, drive my head of marketing, who's amazing, crazy, because I've got so much knowledge. So focusing on what I should have been doing a little bit earlier. What else would I say? Investing in, well, we've always invested in marketing. We do a lot of stuff. We do a lot of conferences. We've been doing webinars every week since the beginning of COVID. So we give a lot away, I guess. So that's a lot about branding and local reputation, I guess. But I think being a little bit more focused on the money and profit, we should have done that earlier. Our infrastructure and our systems aren't as sufficient as they should be.
So can you do that? Can you combine being really focusing on high quality work and really focus on being profitable? It's like that thing about you could be fast, you could be high
Yes,
quality, or you
yes.
can be or you could be cheap, but you can't have all three.
I think you can if you've got enough critical mass. So our issue is that in order to provide the quality, we've got a lot of the support, but we haven't got as many people delivering the work. So if we can dilute that out, so I think you sort of say 30% should be non-income generating. But also the type of work that you do. So one of the things that we've been doing this year, which has been really exciting, is we've managed to get some tenders to deliver training. So we've got at the moment 100 learners going through a digital marketing training course, which we believe is filling the skills gap of the future, and it's very focused on these minority groups. It's all funded by the government under something called the Digital Skills Boot Camp, and we've got another one starting in June, which we're recruiting for now. So that work is really, really profitable compared with just delivering digital marketing, which is all based on the number of hours. So I think I think the type of work you do is really important, and having the high value work. But the other issue I think in the Midlands is that particularly in Nottingham, there's some really good agencies in addition to ourselves, and so we're sort of hit a bit of glass ceiling with regards to day rates. So you have to find other ways of being profitable and being more efficient, and I think that's what we're focusing on now is trying to be more efficient, and automation is going to be really important going forward, and focusing on the work that people value, so that they're prepared to pay for it.
And asking the dumb question, uh, do you believe that clients want a local agency and therefore they kind of put a pin in the map and then draw a circle of 10 miles, and therefore you find yourself competing regularly against
Um,
other agencies in the region?
Prior to COVID, I had this philosophy, which I think may still happen, or this idea that agencies were going to become like solicitors and accountants, and that there was this, because there's so many, and we're almost at saturation point, that
Mm.
you would go to your local agency because you could go to their office, and a lot of them want to be able to just, we've got four meeting rooms upstairs.
Yeah.
And that would be what everybody would want, even though most of our clients weren't in Leicestershire, by the way. So we had this philosophy that eventually it would consolidate. And over the last 5 years, we've focused more on getting our brand within the East Midlands rather than worrying about being at all the conferences all over the country. I think the exception to that is if you can do something niche or you can do something special that breaks the mold. And I'm sure this is one of your sayings. If you're the
Wow.
best, you're the best digital marketing agencies for lawyers, then and you know who I'm thinking of. Um,
Hmm.
then you cut through all of that, and it doesn't really matter where you are. So we have sort of thought about in the past and thought, oh well, should we just focus on e-commerce, or should we just focus on X, Y, and Z? So now what we tend to do is we focus on what I would call STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing. Because the advantage of those sectors is that they do both B2B and B2C, and they're the areas that we know a lot about, and they're unsexy, so other people aren't interested in those.
Yeah.
So that's why I like those sectors, and there's loads of them in this area. So if you look into the local East Midlands, there's loads and loads of manufacturing, there's loads of science, there's loads of bio, pharmaceutical companies and tech. So within the sort of heart of East Midlands, we're in the right place to service those types of clients.
Brilliant. We're about to run out of time. So, final question. Uh, what are your nuggets or your pearls of wisdom that you regularly share with other agency owners, or things you find yourself saying to them quite a lot when you meet them?
Okay, so first of all, I think there's three main things. First of all, get a partner in crime. Get your Darren, who's going to be the one behind the scenes that does all the stuff that you don't do, and make sure that keeps you on the right course and stop going off, and actually getting a Darren and a Yanis is good too, or a Robert. So having a coach and somebody else internally to mirror you, I think is really, really important. The second thing, which we are really good, is we're all over the numbers. We know our numbers inside out. We track everything. I think that's very important for just understanding. We know why we're not making the profit. We know what we're doing wrong. We just need to correct it. And I think the third thing is, if you want to be a bigger agency, you've got to act like it. So if you want, I mean, we're planning to get to 5 million over the next couple of years, and we're currently 2 million. Well, you've got to put the processes in and the staff in place and act like you would if you were that 5 million company. So wherever you want to be, you've got to act like it. So if that means you need a marketing person, it means you need a salesperson. Because if you look at some agencies that are doing that turnover, they've got those resources and they've put them in place. And even if it means you've got to sacrifice profits now to achieve it, if you don't put it in place, you'll never get there. If you carry on doing the same thing, you'll say the same.
Brilliant. What a place to end. That's been so great speaking with you, and it's always always a pleasure. The conversations always shoot left, right, up, down, across, in and out, but that's fantastic. Thank you so much for being a really lovely guest. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for having me. It's been an honour.
Thank you. And that's a wrap, as they say.
Cool.
Great.
I've
Lovely.
no idea what that was like. I mean, we wandered off a bit.
Fine. It's nice. It's nice and conversational, and didn't feel like we were didn't feel like we were plowing through an agenda. That's lovely. It's great, and it's
There's a few things in there that people might find useful. The
right.
thing about having a pay scale, I think that's always really useful. The thing about having the recruitment boot camps, I think, is something that everybody could use. So do we need to
Yeah, it's a
record
really
a
nice
different
idea.
version or something, or do you just?
No, no, no. That's it. It up. So what happens is it records at your end,
Yeah.
and it records at my end. You can probably see it on the right hand side saying you're 99% uploaded. and then it slams the two together. So you're not dependent on broadband like Zoom. Zoom does everything in the cloud. So if either side goes down, it's all over the place. If either person's got bad broadband, it goes down. So that's why we use Riverside, and it's a better quality. It's 4 HD or whatever.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
no idea what that means, but it sounds like I know what I'm talking about. Um, so quickly, we are so. Thank you very much. Fantastic. I'll check about my diary about whether I can do that date. That'd be fantastic. Can I just have 5 minutes of your time
Yeah,
to talk about
yeah,
Janusz?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Janusz and I are now partners in crime.
Which I thought you were
um,
already, but
yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. That's fine. That's even cleverer. That's even better. Um, and so I am talking to his clients to just check out how they feel about the service they're getting from him. Is there anything they want more of, or less of, or stop doing, or start doing, or continue doing? And it's just a general sort of update. Any feedback that we can give him, really.
yeah. So we really like working with him. He's a really good guy. He asks the right questions. There was a very strange conversation about 2, 3 months ago where he says, "I'm not sure I'm the right coach for you because you don't do the classic things that I would tell an agency to do." And my comment back to that was, well, that's not what I employed you for. What we employed you for was to help us come up with a plan and advise us, how that compared with what other people would do, and keep us and help us keep to the plan. Because our issue isn't the planning and working out what we need to do. Our issue is sticking to it and putting the processes in place to make it happen. So it's more the implementation of that, and having that external voice of bringing in, you know, what else other people are doing, which we're not doing. So we've nowhere near exhausted our relationship with him. Interestingly, I'll just tell you what I haven't had a chance to tell him yet because I'll see him on Friday. But Silverstone Technology Centre that we're members of have got this free mentoring service, which is called Be Better or something, I think it is. And we've got like a mini board there, but that's acting more like a board would in the sense that we've got to present what we're doing. So it's different. So that's more, that's sort of like questioning what we're doing and we're presenting it, trying to be more grown up, I guess. But with regards to the 3 to 4 year plan, what Janice does is what we need. So I'm very happy from that perspective. I think sometimes he's a bit soft on us, and maybe
Do you want him to be tougher on you?
I think at the moment,
I know you say you think he's soft, but maybe that's because he doesn't want to lock horns with you, or
no,
maybe
no. I mean,
I
he's
don't know.
not
Maybe
he's not scared of telling us what we need to know. But at the moment, I think maybe we're not being tough enough with the rest of. I think there's a different issue. I think we're not being tough enough on others, and some of the things like the processes and stuff, we're letting other people get away with, and I think maybe that's where we need to address issues now, because if we are genuinely going to try and hit these profit targets that we need to get to, then we need other people to start upping their game. And one of the things I didn't say in the call is I think the trouble with being, and I know this is my characteristic, not necessarily others, is we're a little bit too people first and a little bit soft sometimes. And we're not. Were you there when at Bristol when one of the guys said to Darren he needed to be more of a see you next Tuesday? Because he said he needs to be a bit nastier. I mean, it's just not in our
yeah.
nature to be like that. But yeah. So I'm not asking Yanis to make be like that. And I don't think we will ever be like that. But we probably,
A bit more tough love.
yeah, I think we need a bit more tough love. Um, I think, and I don't know how much of it is my bad habits and things that it's almost too late to be able to change. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm the best I'm the best salesperson, but I'm always probably the worst. You got the best and the worst in me. So I don't know whether we need to be tougher on me as an individual, and work out, that division. I mean, it's easier now with Darren. I mean, he can hear me what I'm saying, but it's easier now with Darren being MD because he's taking more responsibility and he's running more of the meetings. So internally he's seen more as the face, which is good, which is a big change. That's good.